Our country, unfortunately, right now and in recent history, exhibits all the classic marks for nations that are turning into dictatorships and autocracies. This morning I want to begin with a few verses of scripture that give me comfort. "I wish it need not happened in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf. "And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us." Anyone can slay a dragon, but try waking up every morning and loving the world all over again. That's what takes a real hero. Now winter is truly coming. In the winter, we must protect ourselves, look after one another. Winter is coming. The place where you made your stand never mattered, only that you were there and still on your feet. That last one's from Stephen King's The Stand, which I reread this week, or last couple weeks. Felt it was a good story of good versus evil for the election season. Hadn't read it since it came out 40 years ago. And I don't know how I forgot there was a character named Tony Lemonster in the story. Me, in my hometown, Tony Lemonster. But what I take away is, never matters where you make your stand, only that you make it and that you're still on your feet. Because I'm anxious about the election that's coming up on November 5th. I think the thing I'm most worried about is violence. I don't know if you've heard, but Democratic headquarters in Arizona were shot at in September and October. Recently, Trump had a campaign stop where he made fries or whatever at a McDonald's. And there was a big rally for him there. And there were counter-protesters from the Harris campaign, one of whom hit one of the Trump supporters with a sign. In 3 different towns where friends of mine serve as ministers, campaign signs on lawns have been set on fire. Our country, unfortunately, right now and in recent history, exhibits all the classic marks for nations that are turning into dictatorships and autocracies. In their book, How Democracies Die, Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt point out that there are 4 characteristics of emerging totalitarianism. One is the rejection in words or action of democratic rules of the game. 2 is the denial of the legitimacy of political opponents. 3 is toleration or encouragement of violence. And 4 is a willingness to curtail civil liberties of opponents, including the media. We see all of these right now and on the increase. We left up the decorations from last night's Halloween party because these are scary times. And you know what? The scary times aren't going away completely no matter who wins this election. It is still going to be a long walk home to the beloved community. It's going to be a long walk home no matter who wins. Longer one way than the other probably, but long nevertheless. So what are we to do? Well, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing. We're going to do that through the election season. We're going to do that no matter who wins. We're going to listen to wise teachers. We're going to lean hard on our most cherished and core values. And we're going to rely on each other in loving community. It's what we do. It's what we're going to do through this season. And it's what we're going to do on November 6th, no matter who wins. Although I doubt we'll have a winner by November 6th. But it doesn't matter, because we're going to do those three things anyways. And those three things are going to help. They will help get us through stuff. I said during the COVID quarantine time period that the only way out of what we were dealing with was to go through it. And the only way to go through it is together. Together as a community of faith, and also together as citizens, we have anchors, places of safety, strongholds, tactics and tools, and a team. We have at our disposal at all times the three treasures that Buddhism has, each of us, all in our own way. We take refuge in Buddha, we take refuge in Dharma, we take refuge in Sangha. Buddha is a wise teacher. Dharma is the teaching or wisdom. Sangha is the community of learning or community of practice. In Unitarian Universalism, all of this will center around love and JETPIG. And love and JETPIG. Love and JETPIG. And as citizens, believe it or not, I think this still centers on the preamble of the Constitution. The covenants we make to live out these values, both our religious values and our civic values. And these treasures, both sacred and secular, are not perfect, but they are powerful. They are, in a sense, a refuge that will not excuse us from the hard work of freedom and justice and democracy and love, but one that can and will continually refresh us and reinforce us and hold us up in difficult times. Peter Mayer says, God is the river, not just the stone. And the thing about that is that Buddha, Dharma, Sangha can be that rock you hold on to. But that song also says, God's the river, let go. And when you let go, this existence is a totality of everything. And while we're flowing with that river, we have wise teachers to guide us. We have our core values, our core teaching to fall back on. And we have a community to be there together with us in the good and the bad. I think no matter what your personal spiritual approach, as Unitarian Universalists, we have all these three treasures. I think we have them in Unitarian Universalism, and I think you have them in whatever your particular practice of spirituality. We have Buddha in Unitarian Universalism. We also have Jesus and Moses, Muhammad and Shiva and Sati and Vishnu and Lakshmi and Channing and Baloo and Emerson and Margaret Fuller and Olympia Brown. Who else do we have as wise teachers? It's not a rhetorical question. Who else do we have as wise teachers? Yes. Who are your wise teachers you turn to over and over? Rumi. Wilson. Mary Oliver. Socrates. Rebecca Solnit. Jimmy Carter. Oh. I learned from Harvey Cox in graduate school that there's a Eastern Orthodox church, or at least there was in San Francisco, called the St. John Coltrane Orthodox Cathedral. Yep. Yes! Yes. Tom Waits, yes.
John Lennon.
Yeah.
Eminem.
Yes. Yeah. Look at all these teachers. When you're a little lost, aren't all of these named wise places to go for reinforcement? To remember who you are, where the good is? And that's just not an empty exercise. That's real. Neural pathways get wired, rewired, and wired back. Going back to our teachers who we trust, who are good teachers over and over again. That's a strength. And no one can take it from you. Ever. As Unitarian Universalists, we have a dharma. We have a body of religious teaching. It's huge. It is the living tradition. Look at all the teachers you named. We have all the world's scripture, but we have poetry and philosophy and ethics. We have the teachings of all those wise people through history. Because our dharma in Unitarian Universalism can be so huge, some very creative and clever people have come up with a way to summarize it. JETPIG! Our superhero of core values. And what do heroes do? They come in and rescue us in dangerous times and beat the bad guys. Not literally, we're not going to beat anybody up, but they beat the bad guys. They defeat the evil. JETPIG defeats the evil. Justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity, love. This is the Dharma we return to over and over and over and over again. Unitarian Universalism has a Sangha, a community of learning, a community of practice. The Unitarian Universalist Association is a Sangha, but it's really big and can be a little impersonal. So you know what we have? We have the Unitarian Universalist Church in Meriden, a Sangha, a community of learning and practice, where we reinforce for each other and help each other love and JETPIG. And living in community is a strength. It makes us strong. We're better together. We're stronger together. We have someone to take turns with, because no matter what we're doing to live those core values and fight for those core values, it can get tiring. We need to trade off. We need to be able to take times of rest and recovery, and yet the fight for holding up those values will always go on. So we take our turn resting, we take our turn living those values strong in the public square. This is how we do it. We turn with courage to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to our teachers, our JETPIG, and our congregation. The only way out is through. The only way through is together with the help of the teachers, relying on the JETPIG and the love, and with the congregation, with the community. That's how we get through. That's how we got through last week. That's how we're going to get through to November 5th and beyond. That's how we're going to get through whether it's harder or easier after November 5th. We will do it. We have the tools. We have the treasures we need. However it goes. And I really think that not just as people of faith, but as citizens here in our country, we still have that ability to rely on Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, on good teachers, on the core values, and in a community of practice of just and equitably and sustainably minded citizens. We're not the only ones. There's a lot of us. I grew up with Schoolhouse Rock, so I heard that multiple times every Saturday morning while eating my sugar-frosted sugar bombs. And I bet virtually anybody who's about my age not only has the preamble memorized, but can sing it. On the spot, can't get out of my head, it's an earworm. It's there forever. And I'm glad it is. I really am. Edwin Chemerinsky is a constitutional lawyer and professor at Berkeley Law School. He's a constitutional scholar. He's argued on many occasions before the Supreme Court. And he has a number of really good books. I particularly recommend No Democracy Lasts Forever, which is about how the Constitution can actually be a tool working against democracy, and We the People, a progressive reading of the Constitution. He's got a lot of ideas about what the Constitution is, what's wrong with it, how to fix it, or how to write a new one. He's fantastic. I highly recommend him. And he acknowledges up front as a constitutional scholar that the Constitution is problematic. Boy, watching this video now is a lot different than watching it in 1974 as a little kid when it was on TV. A brand new country was totally empty until those white people started encroaching in from the right side to the left. You know, very interesting that all those founding fathers were fathers. All those 55 guys that wrote that Constitution were all rich white men, and all but 5 of them owned slaves. And yet, they came up with something. And everything they came up with was a compromise. As one of my friends and colleagues likes to remind me, and some of my other friends and colleagues all the time, no one's getting a pony. You're not getting a pony for your birthday. We're not going to get what we exactly want and dream of politically ever. We're never getting the pony. Our job is to be happy with and work with whatever we get that's good. So that's how we go. That Constitution as written by those white guys was racist and sexist and classist and xenophobic. It'd probably be homophobic if they had bothered to talk about that too, but they just ignored that. There's problems with the equal distribution of senators and the Electoral College, both completely anti-democratic institutions. You know, one electoral vote from Wyoming counts for 190,000 people, and one electoral vote in Texas, Florida, or California counts for over 700,000 people. 12 states can win the Electoral College. But also 39 states with less population than the other 11 can also win the Electoral College. It just doesn't work very well. 5 times in our history has the popular vote winner not won the Electoral College, twice since 2000. 2 senators per state is about as undemocratic as it gets. In the last Senate, the 50 Democrats represented 42 million more people than the 50 Republicans. The Constitution and the thing it set up is not perfect, but no one gets a pony. But interestingly enough, Chemerinsky makes a fascinating argument for the preamble, because he says the preamble means exactly what it says, and it sets up 4 core values through which the rest of the document and the government it sets up is supposed to operate. We the people means what it says. Y'all means all, y'all. And the experiment has been to increasingly make we mean ever more people. Effective government is one of the values the preamble lays out. Creating internal and external peace, peaceful relations, a place where everyone should be able to thrive. Justice, fair treatment of everybody, not just citizens, but everyone who's here. And liberty should be guaranteed. There are things that governments should not be able to take away or command. Until the mid-19th century, the Supreme Court of the United States made its decisions through the prism of the preamble. But then in 1905, there was a case, Jacobson versus Massachusetts, which was a case about mandatory vaccinations in public schools. And part of it was argued on the basis of the preamble. And at that point, the Supreme Court said that the preamble can only be considered a rhetorical flourish and nothing serious about the law can be named constitutional or unconstitutional based on the preamble. And that's what they've done since 1905. But before that, it was the exact opposite. And Chemerinsky's argument is we should go back there. And as I was reading his book, I thought, that's the covenant. That's the covenant. That's the JETPIG. That's the four values of America. Effective government, justice, liberty, and democracy. We the people. Everybody's there together. You know, we develop our character by living our values over and over again over time. In difficult times, character means exponentially more than it does in easy times. Because in difficult times, things may come up where it may be easier to not live your values. It may be less dangerous not to live your values. That's why practicing them all the time matters, because when it comes right down to it, you know, we always live in those times. People say, if I had lived in those times, I would have done such and such. I would have ran the Underground Railroad. I'm like, well, as my friends say, put your body where your theology is. You know, you got to live out those values, even when it might be dangerous. And you can only do that if you practice living those values as much as you can when it's safe. But those values are what gets us through. They help build up the awesomeness of good times, and they help pull us through the difficulty of the hard times. So lean on them. Practice them in the days leading up to the election and in the days after. No matter who wins. No matter what's going on. Practice being your best self. That JETPIG and love. Lean into those values and lean into love, even if what's around you seems a little less safe or a little less comfortable. Don't isolate yourself. Talk. Be part of the community. One of the reasons we live in such tough times is that our core values, both sacred and secular, have made huge progress. Those values were not as upfront and core values for as many people once upon a time as they are now. And the fact that love and JETPIG have had growing support, and that democracy and effective government and justice have had increasing support, calling attention to the injustices and the oppressions. That's why there's been so much pushback. That's why there's been a rise of what's really difficult. It may seem to some of us that all of a sudden, over the last 10 years, things have been horrible. But I want to call you back to, I think I showed this to you 5 or 6 years ago. In the wake of the 2016 presidential election, the TV show Blackish had a fantastic episode where Dre, who's one of the people in the show that's black, he's the father of a family. He's at work in the days after the 2016 election. He works with all white people, and they're all broken up, crazy over the election. And they ask him why he's not so upset about it. And he says, I'm sorry if things just got hard for you, but they've been hard for my people forever. And I really do think there's something to that, in that the more privilege we enjoy in our culture and our politics, the harder it hits us when we finally get to the point, and we get to the point of existential crisis of our culture, our democracy being really threatened. But it took us to get to that point to be worried every day. So I say, no matter who wins the election, all that work still needed to be done before and still needs to be done after. The election, as Raphael Warnock said, that vote is just a prayer for the kind of world you want to have. You're not getting a pony. You're going to pray a little closer to the world you want each time. And because there's been so much pushback in recent years, because of the progress made, we go 2 steps up, 1 step back, 2 steps up, 1 step back. There's a Bruce Springsteen song called 2 Steps Up, by the way. It's just about that. I highly recommend it. It's a good teacher. And we do. We go 2 steps up and 1 step back. The arc of the universe bends towards justice, sometimes like this, in a little lightning pattern, not just one smooth swoop, but it bends towards justice. The more progress we make, the bigger that step back always seems, but it's going to go forward again. And we will be part of moving it forward. And I am convinced, convicted, that in the end, love will win. Because love is at the center of me and you, the center of JETPIG, and the center of everything. Check out my website and blog at tonylorenzen.com for even more resources that will open your mind, touch your heart, and inspire your spirit.